Welcome, everyone. This is Les Muller from Data Leaders. This is the Data Leaders podcast. I am your host. And today on the show, I have Kasia Puchalska. Kasia is the data governance lead for the EMEA region over at JLL. Kasia, welcome on the show.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me to this show.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And for those listeners who don't know, Kasia led a fantastic presentation last year on our Data Leaders Transformation Roundtable in November on a super exciting topic, which is data stewardship and creating a company-wide engagement. It was a huge success, and she will record a virtual version very soon, which will be available to our members. And today, I will just ask Kasia a couple questions about her career progression and also the topic, so the audience members will get to know her a little bit more before the actual session. And Kasia, for those listeners who don't know you yet, can you just tell us a bit more about your background and where you're coming from?
Absolutely. So, guys, I'm living in Warsaw and working in Warsaw at JLL, which is a really commercial real estate company. And what we are doing, we are helping our clients to manage their portfolio better. And of course, in the era of digital world, we created in 2014 the data governance team, who is taking care of establishing the standards, the stewardship, the data quality monitoring for JLL and for our clients. And I'm leading this for the EMEA region.
Fantastic. And you guys are doing a fantastic job from what I've seen in terms of, data. You are definitely one of the top players out there, and you are making steady progress in a more general digital transformation context as well. And you covered a very interesting subject that our members are very much focused on nowadays, which is data stewardship, and really getting the company on board and making sure that being data driven is not just a buzzword anymore, but really a way of life for the company. Ultimately, why did you choose this particular topic?
I choose this topic because for me, data governance is really about the human experience. It's really about making sure that people are engaged, empowered, and fulfilled with the knowledge. I don't think that by choosing the technology, connecting the data and integrating them through the data warehouse, data integration, without connecting the people around it and the business processes, it's just, you will never be successful. And stewardship is a way to do it, is a way to build a bridge between what technology teams and IT is doing and the business people who really knows what does information mean, and to connect them and to understand, to agree on the standards, to see what is the perspective, to make sure that the money that are invested into technology, and these are quite a big investments, are well spent, and to make sure that then people will not be frustrated in your company with what was built, and they can actually get the insight.
And how long have you guys, been actually making this a priority? So you've been at it for years, I presume. Yeah. How old the project is?
The project is like now 4 years old. So it took us some time to really build it the way it is. And it's, and I can assure everyone that this is a rather long-term process, because first of all, you need to establish in your head what will be the baseline for the stewardship. The stewardship we built at JLL is very specific to JLL because it is specific to our organization, how we work, what is our business model. The business model in each organization is different. That is why the first step is really to figure out what will be the best structure and how we will organize the stewardship around what? Around data classes, as we did at JLL, around something else, around business units. That's a question that you need to find the answer at the very beginning. And once you get it, then it's just, as usual with such project, get the buy-in from your executive, because without this, people would not be interested to be a part of something big. I think the third thing is absolutely to make it fast, to make fancy, to make it sexy, right? That people want to be a part of it, because it's because you will then be recognized by your executives, by your managers, and you are actually part of something big. So make it sexy, communicate it well. It's actually actually very, very important. And then just run the processes, make sure that, you know, people are well selected, right? Perhaps some people will just get off the bus, right? And you will need to replace it, just like a business as usual. But I think the most important is to very well understand your organization to be able to build an effective stewardship.
Mm-hmm. And I know that everyone now is looking for best practice on how to actually, you know, lead and conduct a similar transformation. Obviously, every company is different, but when we are talking about major organizations that have a global presence, getting that buy-in from senior management is, you know, always a challenge. And also to make sure that, you know, throughout all these complexities that you have to navigate through, and in the changing landscapes and new technologies, you know, every day you are being hit by something else to actually make it successful. And what were your main challenges during that project? So you've been at it for 4 years now. What do you think that actually posed the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge for me was at the very beginning to keep my message simple. That's actually the first feedbacks that I was receiving from the executives from whom I had to have a buy-in was that, oh my God, I don't know what you're actually talking about. Just make it simple. And that was absolutely the key success factor, to make your message simple, to simplify whatever you want, to talk to people the way they understand, to, you know, to have a nice communication. That this communication skills in the today's world for data people, I think it's a key factor, key success factor. So for me, at the very beginning, to respond directly to your question, absolutely make it simple. Make my message simple to convince people that this is the right way to go.
Yeah, keeping the message simple. I imagine it's crucial because, you know, you are the one who actually knows what needs to get done, but people on the receiving end tend to be a bit more skeptical. And
yes.
I know that, you know, digital transformation is can be difficult to comprehend for people who are not in the middle of it, but you need their cooperation. And what do you think so first of all, it's you've been at it for 4 years. I imagine that you drafted out a plan in the beginning, and I know that it is kind of hard to balance between actually, you know, creating a plan from a strategic perspective and then going through it and, you know, kind of aligning along the way. Mm-hmm. So how rigid were you guys when it came to actually sticking to the plans and modifying that, you know, considering the changes that occurred along the way?
So I think it's being flexible and feeling and being adaptable and being willing to change is actually crucial things now. I don't think you can ever implement any data governance program or any stewardship program successfully if you are not flexible in your strategy, in the roadmaps. It's not like at the 4 years ago, we just established the baseline is the same. So the way that the things that the stewardship is created around the data classes, that there are some structural levels that the scope of the stewardship didn't change, but the way we were doing this was changing all the time to find the best thing to be the most successful. So I think the key, be flexible, adapt to change. It's almost like data governance is like a change management. You go through the change and don't expect that someone will go through with you with the change. You are a change manager as well, and you need to adapt it very quickly yourself. And don't be frustrated that people do not understand, that people will shut the doors, because they will. I'm sure they will. Just you know, being flexible but also convinced that this is the right way to do. After a few months, a year, people are coming back to you. Okay, you were right. I want to be a part of it.
And what was the biggest lesson for you that you learned during the 4 years? I understand that you needed to be flexible. I imagine that you guys also made a couple mistakes, which is, you know, only natural. How did you approach this, and what did you learn along the way?
First of all, I learned that you cannot be frustrated. You cannot frustrate quickly. That probably in your work and daily tasks, 80% of the comments will be not very positive. You will find 20% of positive comments, and you need to accept it and don't be frustrated. Because if you have a support from leadership, if you see some small successes, that's the right way. The second thing is that communication and finding friends. I'm always saying that you need to find some friends that will actually back you up. And this is what I was doing. My biggest lesson is that you need a friend. You need someone who will back you up. You need someone on the ground who will believe you and who will be the messenger on the ground. Oh, look, this is the guys that are doing the data governance or data stewardship. Just contact them. Meet people, network as well. So you spread the message. That was the main things that I think I learned definitely through this experience.
That's very interesting, actually, building those strategic alliances, right? And actually, we can take something tangible away here. What would you advise people who are working in similar positions, facing a similar challenge? Who should they be looking for? Is there any particular archetype of person who you should seek out as your cooperative partner?
I think I was always calling this that you need to search in your company. In every organization and every company, there are so-called data freaks. Data freaks are people that are actually not working in a data world, but they are very data oriented and they are working in a business in a different, in my case, it was different business lines, different accounts. You need to pick up these data freaks and make them your friends, because these are the ones that will then drive and spread the message. And these are probably also your selection for the stewardship group, because these are the people that have this some skill set. They are not from data world, so they are not affected so much by all the theory. They have a practical knowledge and common sense, and this is what you need. So find data freaks in your organization, not within data department or IT department.
This is very good advice, and I imagine now that you say this that when they say or they suggest that you should be moving towards a more data-driven mindset, from them it's even more credible, right? Because they're not operating based on a specific agenda. Very interesting.
Yes.
And apart from that, because a lot of people say that, yeah, I understand, but you don't understand. Our company is very different because X, Y, and Z. Do you think there was a special X factor for you guys within the team or within the company that made you successful, or is this replicable across different organizations and different businesses and sectors?
I think I will share, perhaps some of the listeners, this will be a cliche, but I think our success factor and this factor X was the combination of our team, who were the business and very technical people. This was not, and I think the success for us was that we were sitting actually on the business side, not in the IT department. It's nothing wrong with the IT department, but it's really the business is driving the data and should be driving the data. So I think these two things, the combination of talents that you have in your team and the fact that you need to have a very close relationship with the business, or you are sponsored by the business. So I must say our leaders at JLL were very smart to do it like this.
Fantastic. And regarding your specific session, because I imagine that you will cover some of this on the actual virtual, and also you covered it in November here in London. But the topic is data stewardship and creating that company-wide engagement. Can you just tell us what that session will actually cover, just in general terms?
Yes. So the session will cover some basic definition or understanding what actually the data stewardship is. And this is more this session. My session is very practical one, because it is like a use case, how we did it at JLL, what was the foundations for this, what was actually the logic behind why we were doing this, and what was the achievement, right? And where we are. So I think my session is not theoretical session. So you will not get like a one definition. You will just get like a more of the case study on how we did it, to see how you can, if there are some points or some things that you can adjust in your organization.
Very interesting. And you know that on the presentation that you led in November, your audience was very high level, but at the same time diverse. So you had people who were heads of analytics, or people leading data governance, data management, people working in data science. Also, some people were focusing solely on business excellence, and they wanted to find out how to leverage data to actually facilitate the process. Who do you think that would benefit most from this? So are we talking about people, higher up in the food chain, or people who are more on the ground working with the technical side of things?
I believe it's everyone, but I think the most beneficial it can be for the business people who want to understand more what the data governance and the stewardship is. I feel that, and I could see in November that some IT people were very skeptical. Was like, yeah, I'm not sure if this is what she's saying is actually right, which is also right, because I think they have sometimes different focus. But if I were to target my audience, is really the data governance people that are starting their journey, the business people that they want, and business leaders who wants to make their organization really data oriented and be a part of this digital world. That's what I would target.
And what would you expect them to take away from the session?
First of all, I would expect them to know, if someone in their organization will tell them, oh, stewardship or data steward, they will actually know what does it mean. Because I don't think this definition is widely understood. It's a word in English, right? But no one really knows what it covers behind it. So I think that's one thing. And second thing is the overall story. Because there is a point there about the communication as well, right? Because we need to make data governance message and plan successful. You really need to communicate. So I think that's the part that they can take out. And in general, how other people are doing this, and what was of course the challenges. After the session, after the presentation, there is always this roundtable. Yes, and we had it in November as well. What I was trying to do, and what I will be trying to do, to really go to each table and help and discuss and share some of my personal experience, which are not maybe on presentation, and respond to more specific questions as well. So that's what people can expect as well.
Oh, great. And what was the most interesting question that you received in November?
I think a lot of people were asking very basic one: how to get the buy-in, how we define the data classes. I'm sorry to say, you will be disappointed, but I don't really know what was the most interesting one, or the one that I remember. They were quite, I think, basic one, which shows me that actually this topic is not that something people know and they are doing in their organizations.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a reason why they were, looking forward to that, and hearing from you how you, got to a point of actually delivering consistent results in, such a tough environment. But also for those audience members who are not that familiar with the actual roundtable structure. So usually there are 35 attendees in the room, all coming from different data-related functions from large organizations, and we usually have 5 to 6 speakers. And first you lead the presentation, and then the audience members have the opportunity to ask you specific questions. And then after, there is the group discussion that you mentioned, where they actually work together to find out how that relates to their specific business challenges. And after, each table usually presents their solution and their conclusions, right? After the session, what were the main conclusions that you guys arrived at?
What we discovered, and then actually the main conclusion was that you really need to understand well your organization, right, and your business model, to make sure that your stewardship organization will be built efficiently. that you need to communicate your message and keep it simple. Get the buy-in, of course, from the executive leadership. Be flexible as well, right? And I think one of the things that perhaps was the outcome was that be prepared to fail as well a couple of times. And not be frustrated, right? Because that's the positive, the energy, being positive, and always try to convince people about and believe what you are doing. That's actually a key.
Yeah, and actually convincing people, after a point, I imagine that it kind of reaches, critical mass, and you reach escape velocity, right? So when you have enough people who bought into the idea, and then everything becomes easier.
Absolutely.
And fantastic. And if you had to capture just one idea that you'd like the audience members to walk away with after the session, what would that be? And it can be something that you mentioned earlier, because you mentioned quite a few important points.
I think one thing I really stick to it, and I really like it. Data governance is human experience. It's really engagement, empowerment, and fulfillment. That's all.
Fantastic. And Kasia, we are all looking forward to the virtual version as well. I'm sure it will be a big success, just like the session in November was. And I would be keen to find out, so regarding some of the future trends, and before the podcast, we also talked about some of them. What are some of the trends and technologies that you are most excited about today?
I think I'm most excited about the robotics and interaction with robots. I would really like to see how I will be behaving with the interaction. Now I'm, trying and testing with my own phone, right, to do some commands but this is not really a robot yet. But I would be very, very interested to see how I will interact with robots, not with the real people. So this robotic part is really something that is a high for me.
It is very interesting. And now with chatbots, right? I mean, this is so new to everyone, but even for me, when I interact with the chatbot for commercial purposes, for example, it can be an interesting experience. And how do you plan on putting that into action, maybe in a professional context, like, for example, AI and chatbots and robots? Do you have any plans or ideas?
We actually, as a company, we already have one robot in Australia who is a receptionist. So we are investing in this and we are testing this. I didn't have a chance to meet her or him because I don't really know. I don't remember what is the name of the robot. So definitely this is what we are testing. And I think this is, in our industry, is a lot about IoT, smart buildings, and machine learning. So we also invested in some machine learning on how to automate our lease abstraction process. So I think there are a lot of going on at JLL about this, about the startups, about artificial intelligence, and we are trying to be ahead of everyone. That's normal. If you ask me if there is a challenge around it, of course, because I think in today's world, no one knows what tomorrow will bring. That is why this flexibility, which is a key.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sorry to hear that you didn't have the opportunity to meet the robot yet. I hope that you will get the chance to meet him or her sooner or later. And I imagine that he or she will only become smarter every month.
Exactly. Exactly.
Fantastic. So, Kasia, we reached a point in the podcast where I usually ask our guests a few questions that are less professionally related, and it's more about you. Yeah. And your preferences when it comes to different areas of life. And this is the quick fire round, which means that I will just ask you a very direct and simple question, and you will have around 30 seconds to give me an impressive answer. So yeah. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready to fire the first question.
I'm ready.
Brilliant. So what is the biggest mistake that you almost made?
Got married. I didn't. So I almost did it, but I didn't do that.
Okay, very interesting. And what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received? And it cannot be don't get married. So.
Okay. Oh my God. Don't laugh, just smile.
Interesting, interesting. I would like to ask you to elaborate on this, but I'm trying to stick to the rules as well.
Yeah. It was more, about how you behave and how people perceive you in a direct conversations, and how you can actually build your confidence as well. I will not tell you more because it's very, very personal advice from very, very important person in my life. So, but this was the one that I really liked.
Fantastic, fantastic. And the next question is, what is your most influential book, and why is that?
Oh, that's actually, very difficult one, because my background is really the French language and French literature. So I think one of the book that really influenced, and I remember, and I love reading this in the French, not in Polish, not in English, is Madame Bovary. It's a Flaubert novel, and it is important because it's a story about the woman, and I really like stories about women, and how it has a lot of context, it has a lot of levels of abstractions, feelings, and it's not the end is not very good for this lady, but I feel you can learn a lot from this book, and I absolutely adore the French language there, Flaubert language.
Okay, well, I might read the book because it does sound super interesting, but unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to do it in French, so I might stick to the English version.
Okay, try it.
And the last question would be, what would you advise to new and aspiring data leaders who would like to be successful in the profession?
Be positive, always. Do not frustrate. Always try to find these friends around you, and always look at the bright side of life and of data life.
Yeah, I think that's timeless advice, and it can be implemented throughout all domains,
Exactly.
not just data, but in general. So fantastic, Kasia. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been great exploring a bit more about your background, and also the session itself, and I'm sure it will help the listeners as well, especially those who will attend the virtual session. And do you have anything else that you would like to add that we didn't get the chance to cover during the conversation?
I think, first of all, thank you very much. And thank you for all of those people who will actually watch this to the very end, because that, someone might find it boring. So thank you for this. And thank you for inviting me. And I think I can only say that this data roundtable, this was the first experience for me in November. And I can tell you that this is a great experience, both for the speakers and for the listeners and attendees, because the format is very nice, and you can learn a lot and do a lot of networking and get some other perspective. Thank you very much for inviting me for this podcast and for that session.
Well, it's our pleasure, and thank you so much for doing it and your contribution. And I'm very happy to hear that you see the value in the format, and we always try to improve what we're doing, and we really like to listen. And our speakers and our attendees are the same people, so it means a lot coming from you. So thank you so much for your kind words. And Kasia, again, it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you on the virtual session and meeting you again, maybe here in London or one of the bigger European cities in 2018.
Absolutely, looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kasia.